Traders, how are you? With Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. What a week we had in the markets. Everything has collapsed, absolutely everything. And there's primarily one reason why that's actually happened. So I'll explain that to you guys in just a second. Let's get started with the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Now, the main situation is the decisions that the central bank in the United States has decided to start releasing isn't the right word, cutting back on the monetary policy, meaning that they're stopping the injection or the velocity of the injection in the money of the economy. So literally what they're doing, it's called quantitative easing. They're literally printing money out of thin air, and then they just go and they just inject it in the economy. It's basically what every single nation has done in the history of the world, including the Romans, just before the end of the empire. So no biggie. In addition to that, the central bank also, the central bank also is talking about increasing interest rates. So there's a lot of fear that they're going to be doing this more quickly, and they're going to be doing taking the money out and not injecting as much money into the economy more aggressively. So that obviously causes everything to go down. And the biggest thing that happens is in the hedge fund world and the investment world, the stock market is considered a higher risk investment compared to things like bonds, because stocks have increasing and decreasing prices, right? They're variable, they go up and down, so there's a level of risk there, compared with a bond, which supposedly is a fixed interest rate. So if they increase the interest rates, more people want the US bonds, the strength of the US dollar goes up, and then what happens is everything else comes down. Right? So that's essentially just kind of in a nutshell. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but in a nutshell, what's actually going on. The US indexes fell on Tuesday. The NASDAQ this week off 12% of its all-time high. In the stock market world, anytime you hit 10%, you're literally in bear market territory, meaning that there's a downward trend now. And the earnings of the S&P 500 companies rose 22.4% is the expected rise in the quarter four earnings in 2021. So that's going to put the year at 49% for the year, which is a record for overall earnings. So that's another red flag, right? We're in bubble, like a lot of bubble territory. The Dow for the week went down 4.80%. The S&P 500 went down 6.02%, and the NASDAQ is down 8.16%. Tech had a really bad week. Euro markets also mostly negative, with Russia being the biggest negative of all at 4.58%. Most of the other markets, the Swiss, the Euronext, the DAX are all down about 1-2%, not too big of drops. And then in Latin America and Canada, if you guys have followed me for a while, you guys will get that joke. Canada, it went down 3.68%, with most of Latin America being mixed 3-5%. Far East, the Middle East, Nigeria taking the crown for the most positive this week at 3.8%. And then we have Asia and Australia. The Sensex in India went down by 3.70%, which is the biggest loser there in the far East, including, for example, China and Australia and Asia. Bitcoin down 17.81% for the week. Keep in mind that, most people still don't invest in cryptos. So keep in mind that this is really just a normal move for the crypto space, especially Bitcoin, which is very volatile. If I'm not mistaken, for some of you are big crypto guys, correct me if I get this wrong, but anytime that it gets to a record high, the general retracement is about 68%. So in the stock world, if things drop 17%, it's just, it's like the world's going to end. But in the crypto space, it's not really that big of a deal because, that's just the way the market works in crypto space. Now, the market overall is down 21.63% in 2022 so far. It closed at just over 36,000. El Salvador, the country, has decided to buy $15 million worth of Bitcoins. It's 410 Bitcoin. And one thing, the president of Salvador, he's turning out to be my favorite president because he's in with the times. He uploaded a meme with a McDonald's hat on, and it said everybody who has Bitcoin right now, because everybody's literally getting just ravaged. So you got to go to McDonald's and get a job. I thought that was hilarious. Check his Twitter because it's super funny. I'll try to have the guys put it up here so you guys can see it. And if you guys are on the podcast, just search for Day Trading Academy or search for Marcello Arrambide Trader, something like that, and it'll come up on YouTube so you guys can see it. Other than that, France completed its first test of the CBDC, central bank digital currency, which is what I call the government coin, which is what I always thought was the end game for the whole blockchain thing. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, just being a conspiracy theory, putting my conspiracy theory hat on, that the CIA were actually the ones that started blockchain and Bitcoin to be able to test it out, to launch it. The US also released a white paper on the digital dollar, highlighting the benefits and also the challenges of launching a digital dollar. So you can see everybody's moving in that direction. Russia officially banned again the cryptos, and they put out a first test of their central bank digital currency, the digital ruble. Funny, right? How that happens. China bans cryptos and mining. We got a new cryptocurrency. It's the digital one that we control. In commodities, Mike Mueller, which is the head of the Asia of Vital Group, which is the biggest independent oil trader in the world, said on Sunday that crude prices, which are already up over 10% this year, are most likely going to rise even farther. Everybody, especially in the news, is talking about $100, $150 oil. Obviously, that would affect significantly the economy because the prices of everything is going up. But don't worry, wink, wink, it's just temporary. U.S. crude, that's sarcasm for you guys listening on the podcast. U.S. crude went up 1.57% to $85.14. Brent, which is the international crude, went up 2.12% to $87.89. Mainly due to the tightness in the supplies and also an attack in Abu Dhabi, which is in United Arab Emirates. If you guys don't know where that is, it's where Dubai is. It's in the Middle East, right next to Saudi Arabia. Florida orange crop. I've talked to you guys, we've talked a lot about the food shortages, right? I started mentioning this to you guys, I believe, probably about 6 or 7 months ago, which was June, July or so, 2021. The Florida orange crop is the smallest since 1945. It's actually caused by an insect, which is, causing a lot of havoc. But in 1945, there was 139 million people living in the United States. Now we have 329 million, meaning that the last time that we had this size of crop in 1945, the population of the United States was 2.4 times less than what it is now. And we literally have half the amount of oranges. So there are other people that grow oranges. Sicily and Italy, when I lived there, they have an orange, not a big farming industry there, but they have it. California, for example, has some. But Florida by far has one of the biggest percentages of the crop. And so if they're producing half as much, imagine what's going to happen to the price of orange juice soon. Gold went up 0.96% to 1,836. Silver up over 5.6% to 24.37. They had a huge rise in the beginning of the week, and then at the end, as with everything else, they just crashed, threw up on itself. Financial and banking news, the Chinese central bank has decided to cut the basis points by the central bank interest rate by 10 basis points to 2.85%, mainly because the economy isn't doing as well. Who would have thought that a big chunk of their economy, which is in real estate, once that goes down and they literally go after that market to make it slow down, that the whole economy will slow down? Who would guess that? Obviously, they also have the situation with they have a zero COVID policy, which basically means that if they have one case, it literally, they shut down everything. There's still ports that are being shut down. There's entire cities that are in the quarantine. And on the reverse side of that, we have the UK, not the UK, England this week. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson removing all of restrictions in regards to the pandemic. No V cards, if you know that thing that goes in your arm. No requirements for that. No masks. Absolutely everything is canceled. So if you want to travel to London, now would be the time, because they don't require absolutely anything. Double check though if you need to take a test, or foreigners need to have, for example, the V, the thing in your arm. I don't want to say it because we'll get censored. Ireland also in the news talked about removing all their restrictions as well. Welcome to the club. We in Florida haven't had restrictions for what, 6, 7, 8 months, and life has been normal for us in Florida. And the UK National Statistics on Wednesday said that the inflation rate is at a 30-year high in December, hitting an annual rate of 5.4%. Remember that this isn't the real number. Governments manipulate this number because obviously when you go to the grocery store, I know you guys have not seen an increase of 5.4%, right? There was a news article that I talked to you guys about last week where Domino's used to sell their wings for $10.99. There were 8 wings for $10.99. No, I think it was 10 wings for $10.99. It was backwards. Now I remember. It was 10 wings for $8.99. And now they're going to be selling 8 wings for $8.99, which represents an increase of 25% in the cost. You see? So the actual inflation rate is 20 to 30% in 2021. This year, 2022, what's going to happen is a lot of the companies believed, the central banks and the news, that this was going to be temporary, right? You and I talked about how this was not going to be temporary. It's going to get a lot worse. But now that companies are realizing that this is not a temporary situation, that the inflation is going to be more persistent, they're going to start passing their costs on to their customers. So that means that the inflation this year is most likely going to be, I would put it probably at about 40, 50%. So prepare yourself. Maybe the preppers were right. Other than that, Japan's inflation data, fastest pace in 2 years as well. Their inflation, though, is still under the 2% target. They're manipulated numbers again, so they're not planning on doing any decisions. Political news, Russian parliament is holding consultations next week to appeal to Putin that the 2 states in Ukraine called Donetsk and Luhansk, hopefully I said that right, they are 2 pro-Russian breakaway regions, are going to be classified as independent regions. And obviously we still have the situation with the United States and Russia. Russia is now moving their military into Belarus, which is part of the former Soviet Union, but borders to the north Ukraine. And obviously we still have, these tensions where the US is saying no and Russia is saying yes and no. So it's continued to escalate, and obviously it can end up in a very bad place. So hopefully it will die down a little bit. Economic news, German producer price inflation, meaning the cost of produce the items that they sell. Remember that Germany is the 4th largest economy in the world, one of the biggest exporters in the world by far, one of the biggest, not the biggest. Their producer price inflation went up by 24.2% in December, year over year. And that's the highest increase on record post-World War II. So again, since 1945, it's the highest jump in the cost of producing something. So think about this, right? Germany's producer price inflation, being one of the largest exporters in the world, went up by 24%, right? 24.2%. How is it possible that a country literally right next door that does business a lot with Germany only has inflation of 5%? You see? See how when you start thinking about it, it doesn't make sense? U.S. new applications for jobless benefits also rose sharply last week to a 3-month high. This has to do with surging COVID cases, in addition to investor concerns about the impact of the Omicron variant and the fear of the central bank and releasing the gas pedal on the interest rates, in addition to the quantitative easing with the money that they're investing in the economy. Corporate news, everything basically went down this week. Netflix being one of the biggest losers in that it fell almost 22% after they released their expectations on the slowing subscriber growth. The expectations for Q1 in 2022 is that they're going to add 2.5 million subscribers instead of the expected 3.98 million. They did meet the expectations for profit and revenue, but now that they're growing less, obviously that affected quite a bit their share price. Not much in trade news this week. In technology, I thought was really interesting. There's a new biologically inspired battery membrane that's going to allow a 5-time capacity of the kind of batteries we use now, which are called lithium ion. So essentially, we're moving into this whole electrified world, especially with the electric cars, the EVs. So the problem has always been the battery. I had a friend, for example, that just had to redo his Model X and the battery had a defect in it. And if he didn't have the warranty, it would have cost $35,000 to replace the battery in his car. So this is great because it adds 5 times the capacity, which means that cars are going to be able to drive longer with the new batteries. And in addition to that, the batteries hopefully will last longer too. So that's really good news. CEOs from all the major US airlines, or a lot of the US airlines, are saying that they should cancel the airlines are saying that they want to cancel the rollout of the 5G because it could have catastrophic consequences, because one of the frequencies in the 5G, called the C-band, affects the spectrums on the radar for the aircraft. So to not get too technical, essentially some of the 5G frequencies is going to affect some of the technology on the airplanes. They want to delay the deployment of 5G, but one of the things that I'm really confused about is, why didn't they just test this when we had the pandemic in 2021? They literally just did nothing. And now all of a sudden, when everybody's literally, the numbers, if I'm not mistaken, the numbers now for airline flights are back to the 2020 levels. Why didn't they just test it in 2021, even if it's just in one city when nobody's flying anymore? Right? I think they're doing it on purpose. In investment news, U.S. delivery trucks and trains are becoming a target for thieves looking for goods to steal and later sell. Major retailers, which were on the defund the police bandwagon in the 2020 elections, like Best Buy, Levi Strauss, Neiman Marcus, Target, and Walgreens, have all spoken out about the organized crime in Congress to try to make it harder for criminals to sell the goods online. Meanwhile, and this is hilarious, the IRS is saying, well, if you steal something and if you make money off of it, you should declare it on your taxes. So the U.S. is literally turning into a lot of these third world countries, for example, like Colombia, where I'm at right now, where there's a crime committed and they just let people go. And this is why this is escalating in the U.S. And it's not going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to actually get worse. And this is adding to the problems on the supply chains, because obviously the supply chains are already tight and stressed. So when you order a package, if it doesn't arrive, just remember that the train got jacked in Los Angeles. And the WHO, the World Health Organization, advises that they should lift or ease the existing pandemic-related travel restrictions, stating that they exacerbate the economic and social stress related to the pandemic. I already let you guys know that the UK removed all restrictions, even the mandates or the little V thing that goes in your arm. Ireland also starting to cancel them as well. And an unusual facts this week, this I thought was actually pretty interesting as well. They detected in a sewer in the state of Georgia in the United States that there's a gene that causes a bacteria that to be resistant to one of the most important antibiotics that we have today. So imagine you get a cold. Instead of just, sitting it out, just, letting your immune system, for example, beat the cold, creating the antibodies, you just go and take NyQuil, you go and take a pill, right? You get the flu or whatever, and every single time you always take a pill, you always take medication. Well, eventually a lot of these viruses and bacteria learn how to beat the attack that we have, which is our antibiotics. And this is one of the problems that the World Health Organization declared one of the top global health threats facing humanity. Maybe the preppers were right. That's all for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget the like button. The like button commodity price hasn't gone up yet. Smash the like button. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.